time. It's the one thing we all have, yet the one thing we can never get back once it's gone. Some waste it, some cherish it, and for others it slips through their fingers before they even realize its worth. But what if you had just one more chance? One moment to change everything? This is the story of Aryan, a young man who never thought much about time until the day he lost it all. Aryan was like most people, always believing there was more time. He would delay his dreams, push aside responsibilities, and tell himself, "I'll do it tomorrow." Whether it was calling his mother, working on his passion, or even just enjoying the little things in life, tomorrow always seemed like the better option. But life has a way of teaching lessons in the most unexpected ways. One evening, Aryan sat in a cafe, scrolling through his phone, unaware of the world around him. An old man at the next table watched him with quiet amusement before leaning in and saying, "Son, if I gave you $1 million, would you waste it?" Aryan looked up, confused, and shook his head. "Of course not," he replied. The old man smiled. "Yet you waste something far more valuable every single day." Aryan frowned. "What do you mean?" The man leaned closer. "Time. Every second that passes is gone forever, and you will never be able to buy it back, no matter how rich or powerful you become." Aryan scoffed, but the words lingered in his mind. He tried to brush them off, but deep down, something about them unsettled him. That night, as Aryan walked home, his thoughts were restless. He looked at the clock on his phone, watching the numbers change. Minutes gone, never to return. Then something strange happened. Time slowed. The streets around him blurred, the sounds faded, and for the first time he felt it, the weight of time slipping away. And then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The world was frozen, and Aryan was trapped in the middle of it, unable to move. His heart pounded. What was happening? And then, from the silence, a voice whispered, "Now, will you listen?" What happened next would change his life forever. Aryan's breath quickened as he stood frozen in the middle of the street. The world around him was completely still. Cars had stopped mid-motion, the leaves in the trees hung in the air as if caught in an invisible force, and the people on the sidewalk stood frozen in place, their expressions locked in time. It was as if the entire world had paused, except for him. His heartbeat pounded in his ears as he looked around, trying to make sense of what was happening. Then the voice spoke again, low and calm, yet carrying an undeniable weight. "Now, will you listen?" Aryan spun around, searching for the source, but there was no one there. Panic crept up his spine. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice the only sound in the eerie silence. A soft chuckle echoed through the empty street. "You waste time without thinking, yet now that you are stuck in it, you finally care." Aryan's throat went dry. "What do you mean?" he whispered. The voice sighed. "Time is the most precious gift, Aryan, yet you treat it as if it will last forever." A strange chill passed through him. "Who are you?" he demanded. The voice remained silent for a moment before answering, "I am what you ignore every day. I am what you take for granted." Aryan's mind raced. Was this a dream, a hallucination? He clenched his fists, willing himself to wake up, but nothing changed. The weight of the situation settled over him like a heavy blanket. He had spent his life delaying things, pushing moments aside, telling himself there would always be more time, but now time had stopped and he was trapped inside it. His eyes darted around the frozen world, searching for any sign of movement, any clue of how to escape. Then he noticed something strange, a clock on a nearby shop wall. Unlike everything else, its second hand was still moving, ticking forward at an agonizingly slow pace. Aryan stepped toward it, drawn by some invisible force. As he did, the voice spoke again, softer this time. "You have one chance, Aryan, one chance to understand before it's too late." His pulse hammered in his chest. "Understand what?" he asked. The clock ticked. The world remained frozen, and the voice whispered its final words before fading into silence. The true value of time. Arian's eyes remained fixed on the ticking clock. It was the only thing moving in this frozen world, each second passing slower than the last. His mind raced. What did the voice mean by one chance? One chance to do what? Understand time? He had never thought about it before. Time had always felt endless, until now. He reached out to touch the clock, but the moment his fingers brushed against it, a sharp sensation shot through his body, like a surge of energy. Suddenly, flashes of his past appeared around him, moments he had taken for granted. His mother calling him for dinner while he scrolled on his phone. His best friend inviting him out, but he was too busy doing nothing. The unfinished projects, the ignored dreams, the wasted hours. Then another scene appeared, a future he had not yet lived. He saw himself older, regret etched on his face, staring at a calendar filled with lost days. The realization hit him like a punch to the chest. If time started moving again, would he change, or would he fall back into the same habits? The clock ticked once more, louder this time, and then darkness. Arian gasped as the darkness swallowed everything. His body felt weightless, like he was floating in an endless void. The ticking of the clock echoed in the emptiness, growing louder and faster, each beat hammering into his mind. His chest tightened with panic. Was this it? Was he trapped here forever? Then a faint glow appeared in the distance. It flickered like a dying flame, pulsing with an eerie rhythm. As Arian moved toward it, shadows began to form around him. Memories, regrets, lost opportunities. He saw his father waiting for him at the train station, a hopeful smile fading as Arian texted, "I'll come next time." He saw a childhood friend reaching out, only to be left behind when life got too busy. Missed birthdays, ignored phone calls, dreams left untouched. All the moments he thought didn't matter now surrounded him like ghosts. The glow grew brighter, revealing a massive hourglass suspended in the void. The sand inside was almost gone. A deep dread settled in Arian's chest. Was this his time running out? He reached for the hourglass, but an unseen force held him back. The voice returned, whispering, "You wanted more time, but did you ever truly use it?" The last grains of sand began to fall. Arian struggled against the invisible force holding him back, his heart pounding as the last grains of sand slipped through the hourglass. He couldn't let it end like this. There had to be a way to stop it. His entire life flashed before his eyes. Every wasted moment, every excuse, every second he let slip away without realizing its worth. A deep regret burned in his chest. Then, just as the final grain was about to fall, the hourglass shattered. The void around him cracked like glass, splitting into 1,000 fragments. A sudden rush of light and sound exploded through the darkness, and Arian was thrown backward. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air. The world had changed again. He was no longer in the frozen city or the empty void. Instead, he stood in a hospital corridor, staring at a door slightly ajar. Inside, a frail woman lay on a bed, her breath shallow and weak. Arian's stomach twisted. It was his mother. The heart monitor beeped steadily, each sound a painful reminder of time slipping away. Tears stung his eyes as he realized the truth. This wasn't just a vision. This was happening now, and he wasn't there. He had been too busy, too distracted, always thinking there would be more time. The voice returned, softer now. "Time does not wait, Arian. Not for you, not for anyone." His hands trembled. Was this his second chance? Or was it already too late? Arian's breath came in short, panicked gasps as he stared at his mother through the hospital door. His chest ached with guilt. He had promised he would visit soon, but soon never came. Now, time had brought him here, forcing him to face the consequences of his choices. He rushed inside, calling out to her, but she didn't respond. It was as if he wasn't really there. He reached for her hand, but his fingers passed through like mist. A chill ran down his spine. Was he too late? Was he just a spectator in this moment, unable to change anything? The voice returned, but this time it wasn't distant. It was right behind him. This is your reality, Arian. A life spent waiting, a time lost forever. No, Arian choked out. There has to be a way. I won't let this happen. The room started fading, dissolving like sand in the wind. The heart monitor beeped one last time before everything went dark. Then, suddenly, Arian's eyes shot open. He was back in his bed, drenched in sweat, his heart hammering in his chest. His phone vibrated on the nightstand. With shaky hands, he picked it up. It was a message from the hospital. His mother was still alive. Time had given him one last chance. Arian's hands trembled as he read the message. His mother was still alive. But for how long? Without wasting another second, he grabbed his keys and rushed out the door. The streets were alive with motion again, the world moving as it always had. But this time, Arian felt something different. The ticking of time was no longer just background noise, it was a reminder, a gift he had almost lost. When he reached the hospital, he sprinted through the hallways, his heart pounding. As he pushed open the door to his mother's room, he froze. She lay there, frail but breathing, her eyes closed. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the room. Relief washed over him. Slowly he stepped forward and reached for her hand. This time he felt its warmth. Real. Alive. A lump formed in his throat. "I'm here, Mom," he whispered. Her eyelids fluttered, and after a moment, she opened her eyes. A tired but familiar smile spread across her face. "Arian," she murmured. "You came." He nodded, his grip tightening around her hand. "I should have come sooner." She let out a weak chuckle. "You're here now, that's what matters." Tears burned in Arian's eyes. He had spent his life believing there was always more time to call, more time to visit, more time to chase dreams, fix mistakes, and say the things that mattered. But time didn't wait. It never did. And yet, somehow, he had been given a second chance. From that day forward, Arian changed. He no longer put off what mattered. He spent time with the people he loved, pursued the dreams he had once ignored, and made every second count. He had learned, in the hardest way possible, that time was life's most valuable gift. And this time, he wouldn't waste it.